Hi, I'm Brandon, game developer and lecturer. In the previous video, we've applied our knowledge and experience onto photo references. In today's video, we'll apply it onto 2D illustrations and drawings. Without further ado, let's get started. Let's start drafting out the arm in cylindrical shape. Over here, I'm blocking in the upper arm, followed by the forearm. There is a slight tapering on the wrist area to suggest a thinning of volume. It's very good to block in major shapes and proportions now because you don't have the muscle groups in place. Blocking in the deltoids at this point using pink and just roughly adjusting the size here and there to make sure it sits well on the cylindrical shape. I move on to the biceps, which is the neighboring piece muscle group, and the brachialis that sits between the biceps and the triceps. From there we can locate where the convergence would happen. Then block in the triceps in green, drafting out where the ulna and the radial bone would be, and we are able to locate the brachioradialis. Over here I'm depicting the far side of the brachioradialis wrapping around the cylindrical shape. Let's move on to another pose. Over here I'm drafting out the forearm. Looks a bit twisted at this point, and I was trying to plan for the forearm pointing towards the camera, like a foreshortening. And foreshortening is basically having a cylindrical shape that is pointing away from you. So when you have something that is further away, it becomes smaller in the distance, and that is basically foreshortening. And it's currently happening on the forearm, followed by adding in the deltoids, as we would in the first image. Locating the biceps based on the neighboring muscle group, the convergence point of the deltoid. Briefly suggesting a little bit of the triceps that is kind of on the far side of the cylindrical. A quick tip for 2D folks, when we draw muscles, they are kind of like this, and you know there's a frontal piece that is overlapping this back piece. We will draw something like this. So from a 3D perspective, you could see like it looks like this. Right, and the camera is kind of looking from this angle, right? It looks like that. So this line here, it's basically this overlapping with this, right? So you could draw like a tail, for example, like that, but with this in mind, it gives you a little bit more 3D dimensions. Like it gives you like, oh, there's a sense of overlap. You could make this bigger and then this thinner, right? So you could see that there is a sense of overlapping there. Right. Alright, so this is what is depicted for the brachioradialis. Alright, we're back to putting in the brachioradialis and positioning it. I'm also blocking out where the wrist and the palm would be with the fingers, all in almost like a boxy shape to get the gesture in. Let's just do one more, where the back view of the tricep with relation to the torso. Again, blocking in very cylindrical and boxy shape so that we get proportions and ratios and perspective. Then we put in the muscle groups so they sit in place. The biceps, brachialis, the triceps, the brachioradialis that wraps around the cylinder all the way to the wrist. And let's try to illustrate it with something more polished. Colors and lighting. I'm blocking in, again, drafts of where the muscle groups would be. Thinking in mind of where the upper arm and the forearm would be. Again, as you can see, I'm geolocating the triceps, the brachialis, and the biceps. And the forearm position where the elbow will be connected to the medial piece of the tricep. Blocking in quick colors for the skin tone. quick shadow pass so that we get some kind of volume. Rim lights to accentuate the muscles in 3D form. Couple of lightings that are coming from the different angle. And at this point in time, I still have the 2D sketch on, but as soon as I'm comfortable, I turn it off and start going into 2D painting directly. Add a little bit of subsurface scattering and also some black lines to suggest very tight creases where light cannot travel in. Overall, I think the whole rendering is a bit soft, so having some harsh and solid lines would help to solidify the illustration. One of the things I find myself doing a lot is also overly rendering the muscle groups because I'm so conscious of them. So there is always a pass needed at the end to mute it. So we kind of introduce skin layer and fat layer, right, where the muscle itself would not be as prominent or as pronounced. Then over here, I'm adding in rim lights of different colors so that we can accentuate the different 3D form of muscle groups. After I was done with this too, I was polishing a little bit of the silhouette where, you know, like the volumes here and there looks a little bit off. So I'm just there to kind of clean it up a little. And I felt like maybe I could squeeze in one more because I'm having so much fun. So I started sketching the third piece. So again, addressing one of the sketch that I had previously with the forearm pointing towards or almost towards the camera. Similarly, I blocked in the skin tone. A quick shadow pass. Turning off the sketch so that I can start doing digital painting. Adding in the rim lights so that we can accentuate the form. Some darker lines. Over here I feel like the muscle is really kind of in a good shape, but again I find myself pronouncing it too strongly, and it becomes something that I have to fix further down the line as well. I'm adding a little bit of highlights here and there, trying to capture the A shape and the brachialis, and how the brachioradialis is wrapping around the forearm. And the more I'm doing it, the more I realize that I'm overdoing it, and I have to soften it and also to just paint something overlay to mute it, to mute the tonal differences. There you go. I'm accentuating it too strongly and I want to kind of mute it a little. Adding in more highlights of the muscles, some bits of subsurface. But the muscle groups are still too pronounced at this point, so I'll be muting it down a little bit by blending the skin tone color over it. And something a little bit more believable at this point. And the final touches would be to add in the rim lights. So we've come to the end of the video, and we've applied our knowledge and experience onto 2D drawings and illustration. In the next video, we'll apply this same thing over into 3D sculptures. If you like what I've shared, please do subscribe to stay tuned for more. See you around!